Our next speaker I'd like to invite to the stage is Stacy Hammer. Stacy is the Director of Community Health and a registered dietitian for the Lower Sioux Indian community. As the tribe's Title VI Director, she's responsible for administering the nutrition requirements and menu planning for the Elder Nutrition Program. Please welcome Stacy to the stage.
Hame takiapi, shante washte nape, chiuzo zioapoe. Stacy Hammer, emakiapi, shanchayapi, hemachia. Hello, my relatives. I shake your hand with a good heart. My name is Stacy Hammer, and I am from Shanchayapi, otherwise known as the Lower Sioux Indian community. And I would like to give credit to my niece for that translation. We in the Lower Sioux Indian community are working on revitalizing our Dakota language, and we are working with our youth. And from birth to through high school currently, we have Dakota language classes going on in our high school, and we have it in our early childhood currently. My niece, I'm very proud of her. I will mention her later in my presentation here, is currently a freshman at Harvard, and she's planning on pursuing a degree to become a pediatrician and return to our community. So we're really, really excited about the youth in our community and their efforts to revitalize our language. So yes, last night she gave me a little tutorial on how to introduce myself in Dakota. So I wanted to start off by saying I apologize. I did not prepare a PowerPoint. I shouldn't say I didn't prepare one. I have probably a dozen sitting on my computer back at work right now on this work. But I kind of thought that this was more of like a panel discussion, and we were going to be anecdotal and basically tell a story. So I am going to share my story with you. So please feel free to look around the room. Because I won't have anything on the screen, so I apologize. But you can follow along. Our website is lowersiouxhhs.org. If you click on Community Health, we have our committee tab on there, the Lower Sioux Health and Human Services Advisory Committee. We have links to our strategic plan as well as our resolution that I'll be discussing today. So, and I know in the interest of time, I think we're a little behind, so I will kind of give you just kind of a lowdown of the history of our community and the policy itself, and we'll open up to question and answer once the panel is up here later on. So I wanted to start off by kind of explaining our community. So we are one of the 4 Dakota tribes here in Minnesota. We are located in south central Minnesota. And we are a smaller tribe. We have approximately 1,100 community members living within our 10-mile radius of our reservation. So like any other tribe in the nation here, we are very different, but very similar, obviously, with other tribes in some of the issues that we deal with, but then also the ways that we are trying to help each other. So what I wanted to start off with is, how did this happen? How did this policy even happen in our small community? So a few years ago, I believe it was 2015, we as a small community health department, when I started 6.5 years ago, our department was very small. There was only 4 of us in a little office in our recreation center. We didn't have a clinic in our reservation. So we did a lot of contract health. We lost a lot of we really didn't have much access to data on our community members' health. So when I came on board as a registered dietitian, we had never had a registered dietitian in our community. So when I came on board, I was kind of faced with this: what do I do? I have this SDPI grant, so that's the Special Diabetes Program for Indians grant under Indian Health Services. So when I had that grant, I thought, okay, well, obviously I want to teach nutrition education. I would like to work on medical nutrition therapy and work with our community members with diabetes, but how do I do that without the setting that I was used to as far as during my internship process and working in outpatient facilities and working in inpatient? So the conversation started happening with our leadership and this dream that my father's generation had of having our own clinic on our reservation. So we were able to secure a grant and hire one of our community members, actually, who was at the time a health administrator at Mayo Clinic. And so he really wanted to come back to the community to work. And so he was able to come back, and he is now our CEO of our clinic. Our clinic opened in 2015. And so now things have shifted. We have a much broader healthcare system in our community. So with that, we started talking to community about having our first ever Health and Human Services Advisory Committee. So what we did is we started partnering. We started partnering with more organizations outside of our community. We found that we really needed to do that Because, sitting on our small reservation and not talking to those around us and those outside of our community, how are we going to learn from each other? Like Abigail mentioned this morning, we go to these conferences and we meet other people from other communities and we learn from each other. So we reached out to the American Indian Cancer Foundation, which, if you're not familiar with them, they're located here in Minneapolis, and started talking with them about helping us kind of facilitate this process of starting a committee. So we have currently 9 committee members now, but we put the ballot out to our community about how do we form this committee, and who do you think should be on this committee? Because us in the community health department didn't want to make that decision. We wanted to hear from our community. So we currently have, like I said, 9 committee members. A few months later, what we did is we hired 2 youth ambassadors. So what I mentioned, my niece, she came on board in her sophomore year, so the beginning of her sophomore year, and another community member as well came on board. And I'm proud to say that he also is now going to the University of South Dakota and studying psychology, focusing in mental health, and would also like to come back to our community and work in behavioral health. So we're really excited about the fact that these 2, who started off very quiet in our meetings, they both have presented at national conferences during their senior year of high school, and they're going to go on to do great things and come back to our community. So I think empowering our youth and getting their voice heard was really, really vital and important in this process. So another thing I would like to mention, again, with the partnerships is we're not lawyers, and our tribal attorney didn't really have the background in public health. She had a lot on her plate, obviously, so we were able to partner with the Public Health Law Center, and Julie Aoki, who I think is here somewhere, I hope to see you, she was able to come out to our community several times, attend meetings, and hear what we wanted to have in this type of a policy, because how do you draft this policy when you don't have that legal background? So we're really happy to have someone like Julie from the Public Health Law Center to partner with. We also engaged our tribal leadership, which I think is really, really important, and I know in different communities have different approaches with their tribal leadership. We are very fortunate that we are able to meet with them, get put on the schedule within a week, and not have to wait months. So what we also did with them is we had the folks from the American Indian Cancer Foundation come out and do a visioning project with them. And so basically they sat and they interviewed each of our tribal leaders individually and just asked them some questions surrounding health. What is their vision for the community for health? What are their preconceptions about health in the community? So we were able to take that and put that into a visioning project and share that with community, that this is what leadership is hoping for and how it aligns with what the community would like as well. So the process then began. We started working on drafting a resolution. A lot of activities. We meet once a month with the committee. So there's those of us in community health that kind of sit in on the meetings once a month with the committee to kind of help facilitate and take the work back to our office and work on it in between. So we started working on the resolution. It was approved and signed on September 20th of 2016. So again, if you look on our website, I do have a copy of it on our website. One thing too that I should mention is some of the things that went into that resolution were because of, again, this going to these conferences. So I was at a conference here a couple of years ago. I'm trying to remember the name of it now. Sorry, I apologize. But I know one of the things is that they had a youth group, the Youth Voice there, and the youth had said, why don't we give an incentive to powwow vendors? So that is something that I brought back to our committee, and they were really excited about that idea. So what we do is every year we have our annual Wachipi, and so we are offering a 50% discount to all vendors that provide only healthy and indigenous ingredients, foods, snacks, and non-sugar sweetened beverages. So at the end of the powwow, they get a 50% discount off of their vendor fee, which is, the vendor fee is $3.50. So they get 50% of that back as an incentive. So that was something that we were able to bring back from, again, one of these conferences where we're listening to our youth and we're applying that towards a resolution. There are different parts of the resolution as well that we've been kind of working on over the last few years, because obviously once you have the resolution, what are you going to do next? So we did a strategic planning session, and again, that report is on our website, but I'll just mention a couple of things here that were within the resolution and in the phases that we worked on these. So the first one was establishing health promoting and indigenous food and beverage standards for food and beverages served or provided at meetings, forums, and other events sponsored by the community or occurring on community property or facilities. So that was really because when the committee was formed, we asked them to come up with a vision. What is the goal for the committee? What is the goal for the work? So what the goal of the work is they really wanted to start working on increasing access to healthier foods in our community, at our local C-store, but they really wanted to change the environment around our community. So typically when we had community gatherings, it was the typical, we call it the funeral meal, the fried chicken, mashed potatoes, gravy, corn, and a big white roll. And we have committee members that have type 2 diabetes. We have a committee, type 2 and type 1 diabetes. So, when I'm told that, they go to these gatherings and either they purposely eat beforehand, or they really have to really worry about how that meal is going to affect their blood sugar, that's concerning. So that is something that was raised. So that was what that first part was all about, is that we have changed that narrative now in our community for the last couple of years. So now our community gatherings, they have to follow certain guidelines for the meal that we're providing to our community. The second was supporting and increasing the availability of health promoting and indigenous foods provided by our community's associate dining room for food service within our casino. We're also increasing the availability of and encouraging the purchase of health-promoting food and beverages in stores and other community food outlets. And the last is just to address any other challenges that exist within our community to access to health-promoting and indigenous foods and beverages. So, again, this is something that we are continuing to work on. We have the committee is now broken up into 4 different work groups within that policy, within that resolution. And so each work group is working on different parts of that strategic plan. Since that strategic planning meeting in 2017, we've had another one just recently, last December, to see where we're at in this plan. And so we can make another 3-year plan for what's to come ahead. So again, we are looking at working more with the American Indian Cancer Foundation. We've partnered with them, and again, you can look on their website, AmericanIndianCancerFoundation.org, and they have a lot of great toolkits that we've worked on with them. One of them is developing and ordering nutritious and indigenous foods guidelines and checklist. So, when we went to our departments and said, we can't just hand them a resolution and say, okay, now this is what you have to do. You have to only serve healthy foods and non-sugar sweetened beverages. We needed to give them some tools instead of just a document. So we wanted to give them as many tools as possible. Of course, they could always reach out to us, but we also wanted to make sure that they had the tools necessary to make it as easy as possible. So with that nutritious guidelines and checklist, it gives a lot of great tips and ideas on ways to, and things to order, and things to provide to at these different gatherings and events. So I think it's really important to mention that tools are really important when we're trying to make change in our communities. Another partnership that I definitely want to mention is the Notah Begay Foundation. If you're not familiar with them, they're located in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we were very fortunate 4 years ago to be awarded the Community Action Grant with that organization, and that's what really prompted and spearheaded the work, the funding that came into creating this policy. We were able to frame what we needed to do to continue this work, to begin the work, obviously, but to also, what are the action steps for all that work? So I really want to thank all of those foundations, the American Indian Cancer Foundation, Public Health Law Center, and the Notah Begay Foundation, because again, without these partnerships, it would be really difficult to continue this work. And sustainability is definitely very, very important. So even though we aren't current grantees with the Notah Begay Foundation any longer, we have the sustainability plan in place because of the strategic planning that our committee has been working on with our community. So with that, I believe that's all I have. Again, please feel free to look on our website for the resolution, as well as our strategic planning and our vision. And thank you so much for your time.